I am Filippo Sona, and welcome to the debut episode of Wood Couture podcast. Coming up in the show, we have Kristina Zanic, one of the most recognized interior designer, professional and businesswoman of the 21st century. What you will discover in today's show is her journey from Australia to Thailand, Bahrain, UK, back to our home here in Dubai. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to our podcast and also our show. It is the very first one. I couldn't think of any better person than you to be our very first guest. And it's a podcast about legends of the design, hotels and real estate industry. They contributed positively to our industry. So, I'm overexcited that is you the very first, guest in our show. So, as you can see, I did a lot of research about you, and I had to study, impressive. And I would say you, Kristina, for the people that don't know it, I struggle to believe there are people that don't know you.
That's good.
But, few decades of experience in design, a former founding partner of DWP, which is amazing. And back in 2012, you started your own boutique design firm, which bears your name. So exactly what it says on the tin, Kristina Zanic. And what I'm amazed and what I love about you is that you keep very quiet about it. 2016, you won an award for the best around studio as a woman entrepreneur. And from 2018 and 2019, gosh, you rocket, 6 awards for an incredible work on the Ritz-Carlton Al-Wadi and above all also best in hospitality interior designer of the year, which is, I think is incredible, the way you keep it a secret is incredible. But where I would like to start, I think, which is very interesting and what the audience would love to know is where you all started, where do you come from? This is really, where did you grow up?
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, thank you very much for having me on your podcast. This is kind of a real pleasure and to be here with you. So thanks for that. So, wow. I mean, a legend, as you say, that's sort of kind of amazing. But actually, I have very humble beginnings. Grew up in Australia, in Adelaide. My parents were farmers. Actually, my sister's in architecture, which is I hope you didn't find that out with all your research. But actually, I studied in Adelaide and I have a Bachelor of Design in Human Environment. So it's kind of a little bit different to interior design. It's more focused on interior architecture. But after graduating, I worked in Australia for 2 years. I worked with Woodhead Australia and Woods Bagot, actually. Yeah. And then I moved to London. So I just decided that, that I was the age of 20, I think it was about 22, and really wanted to do something different. So I went overseas and moved to London. And unfortunately, London was in a recession, but I got a great job with Texaco, designing their headquarters in Canary Wharf. And I could think that was sort of the start of my sort of adventure. And I kind of liked that. After 2 years working in the UK, I was about 26. I was then offered a position in Thailand. And I remember calling my mother and saying to her, hey, I think I'm going to Thailand. And she was like, oh my gosh, you remember that crazy film with Nicole Kidman? It was called Bangkok Hilton. And she's like, don't go to Thailand, you'll be put in jail or something. So anyway, I still went and I was there for actually most of my adult life, actually. So, but I started working with Woods Bagot for a few years, and then I set up on my own together with a partner, and that we grew into DWP. So I think I lived in Thailand for almost 18 years and then made my way to the Middle East to set up our businesses around the region here. And it's been kind of a long journey, but really interesting, learned a lot. And I just got that travel bug. So I kind of like to be, traveling all the time. So I moved and I decided instead of being here in Dubai, we already had an established office. I moved to Bahrain. So I lived in Bahrain for 5 years prior to coming to Dubai. So yeah, that's pretty well much how it goes, but always doing a variety of different projects, really interesting things. I have a motto. I love to travel, and I like to go to do projects in places where people don't want to go. So, I worked on a project, on the Black Sea, in Angola, in the depths of Africa, Khartoum, Nairobi, and all these sort of crazy places that people sort of never used to go to. So you'd find me there. So yeah, I'm kind of a little bit more of a traveler and really get inspired by different cultures. So that's part of my sort of, ethos and motto in the office, keep traveling and design.
Wow, it's fascinating. I think what I love is that design is in the family DNA, because I couldn't find out about your sister.
Good.
She's an architect,
Yeah,
so fantastic.
An architect.
So before studying human environment, which is fascinating title, you can tell us
actually
a bit more about that. But at what point before that moment, that university time, did you realize that design was what you wanted to do?
Actually,
what shaped you?
Actually, I didn't. It was kind of funny. My sister went through, started to go through university, and my mum thought that's enough, and my father was like, if you want to go to university, you need to go. So actually, he really pushed for us to study, and better to do that. My mother wanted me to work in a bank, actually. She said, why don't you just get a normal job? But that wasn't in my DNA at all.
Right.
And so I think I sort of realized, through sort of university, I really loved art and drawing and all that type of thing. But actually my passion was physiotherapy and sports physiotherapy. I'm kind of tall. I've always been in sort of playing different sort of basketball, netball, hockey, field hockey, all sorts of things. So I always wanted to go into physiotherapy, and actually my second choice was design. So I then got accepted into the design school in Adelaide, and it was an amazing university, and it was a 4-year course. So when you say it's kind of a weird title, it's a Bachelor of Design in Human Environment. So what the course was, the first year was really amazing, because we actually got to understand all the disciplines of design, and that was also industrial design, jewelry and metalsmithing, photography, fine art. So industrial design as well. So we got to sort of sample all of that, and then they sort of, saw where your strengths were and then channeled you into that direction. And mine was in more interiors and human environments, as they call it. And so I then sort of did that, but I always sort of think about, what if I was a physiotherapist? But I guess that didn't happen. But and I did that, and my career just went off. But I worked in Australia, in Adelaide, actually, for 2 years. And it was an amazing experience working with architects. And we were part of a small interior design team within the architectural firm. So I got to work on a lot of designs of public spaces. In fact, I won an award for the company we did a competition for an airport design. Wow. The interiors of the Adelaide International Airport, gosh, that's more than 28 years ago, 30 years ago. And we won that competition. I won that because I was the key designer working on it. So I got to, learned a lot about public spaces and designing airports. So it sort of took off from there, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
It seems that from many public spaces, then you end up in hospitality. And I think what you were describing before is that you live 18 fantastic years in Thailand.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I have a natural question. Why did you leave such a wonderful place?
There's always, I love it there. I still have a home there. I still have a connection. I have an office there. We have 25 people in that office. So I feel I'm connected still with it. I think it's a really creative place. When I first came to Thailand, I have to say, you know, design was not at the forefront as it is now. And I think our firm actually changed the perception of design. We ended up being one of the top 3 firms in Bangkok in doing design. And most of our work was commercial. Back then, there was an influx of sort of the requirement for lots of offices. We ended up designing Citibank's headquarters. It was their largest headquarters in the Southern Hemisphere.
Wow.
And we did that project, and that was about 1,000 people, or 1,500 people actually, moving into that office. We also designed, I think I designed about 17 different banks, HSBC. They had 1,000 people moving in. So these were sort of like huge commercial projects. And it was only until sort of the latter part of our life there that the hospitality industry really took off. You know, Thailand had a great campaign, you know, bringing tourists, and it's always a tourist destination anyway. So we started to get more and more involved. And one of our key projects there was designing Sirocco. So we designed the bar on the top of the, I think it's the Estate Tower.
Right.
And, you know, they filmed that amazing, Hangover 2 or whatever it was. So that became famous there. So also Condé Nast actually called that one of the top 10 tables of the world, for a long time. So then all of a sudden everyone thought you could just design loads of rooftop bars and restaurants. And that was kind of an amazing experience. So I think in Bangkok, we had a really good creative team, and it's a great hub for that. So I sort of don't miss it because I'm there all the time, even with my team now. But, despite the COVID year. But, I was always traveling every sort of 6 weeks to see the team.
Keeping the conversation in Thailand, because I'm drawing into a fantastic experience, and I can see when you talk about Thailand, I understand why it is your home. You consider it home, despite being Australian, because you speak with such a passion about Thailand, which is incredible. Yeah. And I saw a recent video that you shoot together with the Accor group, and you describing Thailand with such a fierce and profound passion. And what caught my eye and my attention was that you speak about and please help me with that, Hmong tribe fabrics.
Oh, they're Hmong tribes, yeah. I collect them.
Tell me more about this. What is so special about these fabrics? Because, you describe with such a great passion. I really want to live that moment, please.
Okay. Actually, one of my passions was also sort of arts and crafts. And Thailand's amazing with all this type of thing. And there are loads of these different villages up sort of past Chiang Mai and Chiang Rai. And one of the villages and one of the tribes is called the Hmong tribes. Yeah. And it's sort of amazing type of, special garments that they wear, whether it's for marriage or celebration of some sort. They adorn these fabrics with these beautiful patchworks. And these patchworks are amazing because they have this graphic element to them. And the graphic design for me is I kind of love the graphic design direction in terms of design. And the colors they use, from really vivid neon colors to very subdued colors. But the way they combine all these graphic elements together, they look fantastic. So I started collecting these fabrics, and then I framed the fabrics. So in my home in Bangkok, I have a whole collection of really unique tribal fabrics, and that was just an inspiration. And it's amazing what you can actually derive from that when you're working on projects and how people see things. And these are just really basic tribes, that do handicrafts and stuff, and they haven't been exposed to the world generally. So I really appreciate that craftsmanship. So I was always going to markets, and you'd never find me in a mall, but you'd always find me in some back street or some sort of a market where we could actually, look for things where, people do something differently. And actually, I was having someone in Chiang Mai make ceramics for me. I sort of created my own dinner set. And I really love the Vietnamese have these Donson drums, and they're these kind of beautiful drums with all these patterns on them. So I took one of those patterns and I recreated that pattern and created a dinner service from them, because these drums were all circular, of course. So yeah, I always love to create something bespoke whenever I have that time, but it also has that craft element to it. So yeah, it's very different to what we do on a commercial basis or a hospitality, but I think having that sort of passion to do things like that, I think it just makes life a bit more interesting and makes shopping fantastic. So yeah, I'm a bit of a shopaholic when it comes to Thai things or Asian things.
I mean, what we just learned is that you like to go in places where nobody wants to go, or less people go.
Yeah.
You want to do project where nobody else wants to do it.
Sure.
So that makes you unique.
Yeah,
I would say,
so.
you know, that's exactly the Kristina Zanic direction, you know, way, you know, my way, as I would call it. And,
actually, you know, if we have that opportunity, you know, I used to have silk made in the outskirts of Bangkok, and I just remember we would go and visit these tribes and these villages, and they just make us all this various silk in the colors that we wanted. I remember going to the outskirts of it wasn't Hanoi, it was Hoi An, and this is almost like 28 years ago. And back then, people weren't traveling as much. So this was a great opportunity. And I designed all these interesting lanterns. And I remember going to see these lanterns being made, because I ordered 2,000 lanterns. And I went to this village, and this whole village was just absolutely full of these lanterns. And, you know, the grandma of the woman who did this order, she was there cooking away for the whole village. And we ended up having a great time with everyone there and making these lanterns with Vietnamese silk. So, yeah, why not? Great experiences.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah. You know, I feel like jumping off plane going now. I want to try it too.
You have to go.
You need to give me the address sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
But, obviously, the passion you described these two places, even Vietnam. Wow, I think it would be the same everywhere. But
yeah, really. Yeah.
Has there been any event or situations or experiences in this country that have really shaped you? You know, I mean, not usual experience, but really remarkable experience that, you know, have shaped your life?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just working with the people. You know, sometimes something so simple can be kind of complicated. And I think when you've worked, whether it's with the Thai people or with the Vietnamese or people in Cambodia, I remember we did a project in Cambodia and we had to have something made out of mud, because they didn't have those construction techniques, and we had to learn how to do something in mud. I mean, these are kind of amazing experiences. So I think, you know, nothing's too difficult. And I think I preach to my team here. It's all about perseverance. And, you know, to have such a longevity in a career and to always be inspired and be passionate, I think you just have to persevere, and through ups and downs, and we all go through that, I think. But I always remember these sort of cool stories of things that we did. And I remember once, I have to share this with you now that we've gone back into my deep depths of my career. I remember a friend of mine, we went to a location outside of Vietnam, and we both went to inspect some of the items that they were making for us. And then the village wanted to put on this beautiful lunch for us, you know, and then all of a sudden we were sort of waiting around, and all of a sudden we heard this scream like, ah, you know, and we thought, oh, there go the chickens, you know, and we're like, oh my gosh, what's happening there? So anyway, they did this sort of barbecue for us with the chicken that was just slaughtered. And we were just like sitting there and thinking how amazing, and people, how they welcome you and are willing to do anything. I think it's great. And I think if you can be creative and share that creativity and push people to be able to do sort of things interestingly, it's really great. So, you know, I mean, I think these things shape you and make you sort of stronger and make you want to do things a little bit differently. You know, it's not always as easy in the real world. You know, there's always other things we have to think about. time, budgets, and all that type of thing. But I always remember my days when designing smaller things as well and having them made and seeing if it was possible to have it made. But we had lots of fun doing it. And you have to have fun, of course. So that's...
It's quite interesting listening to you and your sharing some of your life stories. And then I read, recent publications, that you are on the front page of Interior Design magazine, and one of many, just the one that I managed to get hold of. But your quote quite oftenly says, "I never thought I would run my business again," but you set up your own company in Thailand. You are founding partner of DWP. And then back in 2012, you set up Kristina Zanic Design Consultant. So where does all this drive come from? You are an entrepreneur by nature.
I know, I should be retired.
It's 3 companies. You cannot deny it.
Yeah. I guess I've been self-employed since the age of 26. And, I've had opportunities to go and work with other companies, but I guess, I don't know, I just seem to have a lot of drive. I like what I do. I think I also make sort of really good client connections, and that's been also a driver where you have support from clients. And I feel when you develop these relationships, it's really important to maintain those relationships. So I never feel like it's a difficult thing. I also don't think about it too much. I also think if you work hard, you can make anything happen. And starting Kristina Zanic Consultants again, not again, or starting it as a new thing, it was just another, let's do it. There was a need. I got a call from a client. I remember I was in Turkey and they said, "What are you doing there? You got to come back, help us with a project." And I did, and all of a sudden started the company again. So, nothing's too difficult. I don't know. I seem to have some inner drive, work all the time. But
I think you have a great humility. You're very down to earth, very approachable, and getting to know you more is incredible. You find out some of the amazing attributes that you really have as a human being. You study human environment, so not only as an individual, but in your profession, you incorporate the human element. And I must admit, I have to praise your marketing team because they describe you superbly well.
Oh, really? Good.
If I may, for those people that haven't got the chance...
They'll have some brownie points from me today then.
Yes. And for those that have not been to your website, they have to go and read about your biography. But I want to quote this one, okay. and I'm going to ask you a very good question. Kristina prides herself of being in tune with her clients, with a talent for synthesizing, making it clear what is desirable and attractive with what is viable and functional. So how would you coach a new employee, or how to achieve this balance?
Well, that's really kind of a difficult thing, and I think it takes time. I think what's really important, we have to listen to what a client is asking for, or whoever, and we have to really, really be sort of true to what they want, but we should also try and twist that around to create something creative. But actually at the same time, what we're doing, we have to also be mindful that it has to work. It has to be functional. They can afford it. And I think it's always something that we need to balance between, wanting to do what we want to do. And I think a lot of young designers still don't understand that whole concept of this is the client brief. You need to listen to what they're requesting. And I think just over years and years of experience and just listening to clients, and also I'm a little bit outspoken. I like to sort of challenge my clients as well. But I think I also have this very sort of honest approach, because I think we need to question them as well. Maybe sometimes they don't know if they're doing the right thing. I really believe in bringing my team to meetings all the time. If I'm going to a meeting, I never go alone, so they have to be part of that meeting. And actually over the last year, I think the COVID thing in terms of business, it's been great. More of our team have been able to attend meetings. So if I'm in a meeting, I can question a client, and I think my team wouldn't do that as much. And I think that's my sort of strength. I don't worry about it because I think it's how you pose the question. And I'm always reviewing how people write something, and if they may have contacted the client and they may have written an email. And then I read that email and I think, well, I would have said it a little bit different. I would go back to them and say, hey, you should have written it like this. It's the way you say something. And I think when you earn that respect from the client and you develop that relationship, there's no going back. And I think teaching someone that, it's a journey. It's not something you could teach someone in a month or two. It's a long journey. And I think a lot of designers tend not to stay with their companies for a long time. And one of the best things for them to do is stay with a company, go through the thick and thin. If they don't know what they're doing, they need to ask. If they're not happy about something, they need to come and ask. You know, I'm approachable. You know, you talked about that human sort of touch or human experience. I really believe that everyone has to be approachable. Yeah, I may wear that hat as a boss, you know, and sign the checks at the end of the month, but actually at the end of the day, I'm also a team member, and I like when my team challenges me as well. You know, they have to bring in fresh ideas, but they shouldn't be afraid to ask for something, because if they don't ask, they don't get. But sometimes I also like to reward if I think people are doing a really great job and really putting the effort in, even if maybe something isn't going right. But I think it's listening is important, earning respect from our clients, but it's something that takes a bit of time. And I think if a young designer really waits or works in a firm, whether it's my firm or whether it's someone else's firm, they really need to give it some time, and it's not something you learn overnight. So, it's taken me 3 decades. And I think I'm always, coming across things. So putting out fires and,
As a boss and as a colleague, when you lose focus, or let's say partially lose focus, what you do to regain the situation?
I can't. I'm not allowed to lose focus. If I lose focus, everybody loses focus. So sometimes, you go through your ups and downs and you think, do I need to do this today? But actually, I think if you sort of really look at the issues that are at hand and you try and fix them, and really, whether it's with a client or with someone in the office, you need to go and talk about it, communicate about it. I'm really blunt. Maybe they say Australians are a little bit more black and white. I'm purely black and white. I don't have time for, sort of worrying about micromanaging things. I think it's just better say what you need to say. So you get a much better output from people and they know where you stand. So, I think that's good. So I really like to try and teach the team in the office to, speak out, as much as they can.
So, and as Kristina, what habits or obnoxious actions do you have that people don't know?
I don't know. I want to ask them, actually. I don't know, actually. I don't know. I mean,
That made you think, right?
Yeah, it does make me think, I don't have time to think about those things, but I'm sure, my marketing team could give you a few pointers on that one. I'm glad you couldn't find that in your research.
No. That's inside Kristina, we need to find out.
Yeah.
But I want to build upon something very important you said, which is I sympathize with that, and I think is also one of the values that I personally, carry through since I was a kid, and be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic. And on that note, I wanted to ask you a industry-wide question, and is, what bad advice do you hear in the industry when it comes to interior design? What is common that, seems to be, popping up every now and then, what is the bad advice?
In terms of bad advice on projects or people? Or?
On interior design in general, whether it is, I know it's not nice, but at the end of the day, we are surrounded by all sorts of people. And, as you contributed so much to the interior design industry, there is always clients that tell stories.
Yes.
So what is the common bad advice that, the industry tend to...
I think what I personally, actually, I really, when, you mentioned earlier, I keep to myself, really. I'm very true to myself. I really care about what we put out, what my team does. I want to make sure that we come across as professional as possible. I mean, you can't sort of keep an eye on everything. But in the industry, I'm not one to gossip. It's not my style. But sometimes you hear sort of things about different firms or people not doing the right thing or whatever. But, I sort of don't listen to that sort of gossip, if you want to call it that. It's, I've got bigger things to do. So, I don't know if it's any advice per se, but I just really want to make sure whatever we do, what we put out is the best that we can do for the clients. And it's simple as that, actually.
If we talk about, not necessarily bad advice, let's say unusual behaviors like, cutting budgets.
Oh, yeah.
I know one of your recent
value engineering.
one of your recent quotes says, the more you keep cutting budget, the more layer design comes off.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Actually, I mean, it's disappointing. But then again, it's a client's prerogative. Yes. I would rather sometimes clients focus on certain areas and spend the money where they feel is necessary rather than doing too much and not have enough budget to cover everything. I also like when we do refurbishments, let's not throw everything away. I think when we worked on the Alcázar Hotel refurbishment, I think the asset managers were really kind of super happy with us because we maintained 90% of the furniture that was already there, but reinvented it. So, budgets always are an issue. There's never enough. I always question clients. So where did you get that budget from? How do you know that should be the budget? Because sometimes we get these figures and we think, where did they get that from? It's not realistic. And then we have to make it realistic. So that becomes a challenge in itself. But value engineering, I hate that word. I mean, actually, it's a kind of almost a swear word in our industry for me, value engineering. I think if we are sort of given budgets from the beginning, and if we can work to those budgets and we all know that that's what the client, has to spend, we should work from that from the beginning. And then there's no need to value engineer, and makes the whole process much easier. Nothing worse than we spend all this time designing something, the client's super happy with it, and then at the end of the day, it gets watered down. And like you said, it starts to strip the layers. And then the final product isn't exactly as you imagined it. But if we had designed it to that budget from the onset, worked with suppliers directly, to achieve those budgets, and imagine we achieved those budgets, but then what if the client then said, wow, you achieved that, maybe I'll cut it again. Now that's not fair as well. So it's a tricky line in that. But I think at the end of the day, some clients do share their budgets and some don't. And some just make it it's a mandate to actually do a value engineering exercise. But actually, if we had designed it from the beginning, maybe we don't need to do it. So it is a kind of it's a horrible topic. But
it's finding the
it's part of the business. I mean,
it's try to make it a success, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to make it a success. Actually, we just finished something yesterday, and I spoke to the client just before I came here today, and he said, we love that new design, but I'm really worried about the budget. I said, why? He goes, well, it looks, I don't know if we can afford that. I said, well, why don't we strive to afford that? Afford that main feature, and everything else we can sort of simplify or do something that isn't outrageous. And we can really afford that to make your project so much better. And, we have that wow factor. Everyone's looking for that wow factor, that insta moment, in a place. And if we start to water that down, I think we lose that essence of the project itself.
Talking about wow factor, and I want to take you back to 2018, and I'm very curious to know, obviously, you won the best hotel interior design of the year with the Ritz-Carlton Al Wadi How did you do that? What does it take to win an award?
Wow, that project was amazing.
The winning design.
Yeah, that project was an amazing project. We were really given this opportunity, and it was a banyan tree hotel, so it was a refurbishment. So actually Marriott were taken, so it was a reflagging of that property. And I had a senior designer, Jose, working with me on that project, and he was great. And we really had to sort of create a narrative and a storyline behind that project. How many opportunities do you get to do like a tented, villa in the middle of a desert? So projects like that come, once in a lifetime. There's sort of, there's more urban hotels than there are, hotels in the desert. And I think the unique product in itself just makes it stand out because it's quite kind of really different. But we created a narrative and a story, and we were really true to that story. So the whole guest journey was really instilled in that whole property. So we really had this a lot more Arabian feel, very high end. People tell me it's kind of an expensive place to stay, but, well, it is. But it is beautiful. So we really, I think it was taking that narrative, and I think it's really, it was a different project at that time, and it just became very unique. So I love those type of projects. They're few and far between, and when you get that opportunity and you can do something with it, and the client was really receptive to creating that concept. But also, we had to work within the shells that we had and the existing environment and so forth. But, just in that project, the rooms really were beautiful, and we were really able to reinvent them. And I think the operator and the client really pushed to do something different there. So we really reimagined the space. But the funniest part of the project was they had a Chinese Asian restaurant in a tent. And we changed that restaurant to look like a farmhouse restaurant because their whole concept was farm to table concept. And we created a farmhouse in a tent, and when I think about that, it was really challenging, but I think the final outcome was really amazing. And we had a great feedback from customers and the client, the operators. So yeah, it's a popular hotel. So maybe we really deserved that award actually, because we really worked hard and the outcome was great.
How did you celebrate the win?
Oh, I guess, yes, with the team, a couple bottles of champagne, why not? But yeah, I was really surprised, at the end of the day. I remember it was the first award that they were announcing that evening. And I was sitting next to some people, and then they said, "Wow, that's you!" And I'm like, "Oh, really?" So I just remember it was a nice surprise.
How the moment you receive the awards, and I don't know how it feels, but who was the first person or group of people that you thanked?
Oh, definitely Jose, because he was really integral to the project and, working on that day and night, and he did an exceptional job. But actually it's the whole team effort, and the whole team did a great job to get the outcome. So not everything went smoothly, every project has its sort of challenges, but it was really the team. So, and the client for giving us that opportunity, of course. So yeah, we have to be happy about that.
So obviously, as you said, not everything goes according to plan, or in life and in business.
Yeah, sure.
So I would say blending the two, what failures or big mistakes that you done, have changed the way you're approaching things, it could be both life and
actually,
business.
Yeah, wow. There's
or taught you a big lesson, let's say.
Lessons, wow. I guess there's a lot, and you learn from some of the mistakes. And I think one of the things is I really want people to, if they get annoyed, do they write that email? How do they draft that email? And never write an email or any sort of correspondence when you're angry, right? When you want to say your piece. I think you need to calm down. You need to really think about it. So you need to step back from a situation. I think when you're younger, and I know when I started my business, a bit more gun-ho, I think, you just say things off the top of your head and then maybe you regret some of the things you say. But I think that's where, some advice is don't react immediately and always think about it before you say something, because I think sometimes there's more to it. And always think of how else you would approach it, put yourself in that situation. So, think before you, speak or write that email particularly. It's easy, press a button and that email's gone. And then you think, oh, can I retract that, So
it's quite interesting because wow, the more I discover Kristina, the more I found you are very true to yourself. Because whatever I read in the press, or the more I speak to you, and there is amazing consistency. You quoted in this interview saying, "I don't design for what I see, but I design the way I feel." Mm-hmm. And that's incredible, because you just said, think before speaking. So emotion goes into your design.
It's about emotion. And I think clients and projects and what we work on all have to have some emotion. There has to be some sort of feeling behind it. And if you can show that feeling through whatever you do, and design is a great platform to do that in, right? So, but also when we're designing hotels, it's not about our personal feeling. We have to think, out of the box, and we have to think much more on a broader scale, a lot more people. It's not about personal, but it's how can we get a reaction from people? How will people feel about going to that location? How would they feel about being in that space? So it's constant emotion, and I really think it's so important that we able to create that. And sometimes we start off with really fantastic ideas, but then that gets watered down and we've lost that emotion. And then we have to go back. How do we get that emotion back in? But it is important.
Recently, there's been a publication around the end of March from Hilton Corporations, and a good friend, Larry Traxler, which is the Global Vice President for Design, kind of contributed to a paper that was distributed by the Hilton Corporation itself, and talking about a decade of innovations, and what we learned, and the 7 key things that will shape the future of hotel design. And I would love to read exactly the point about design, which I found fascinating. It says the future of hotel spaces design will gracefully embrace social distancing, contactless guest journey, and deliver innovative ways of blurring the lines between indoor and out. So how do you feel about that? And what's your views about how design is going?
Yeah, actually, with a lot of those points, we're already doing those now, actually. And there seems to be no borders between spaces. Spaces are intermingled. We're doing a project where, the all-day dining is part of the lounge, is part of the lobby space. That's kind of interesting. We just completed a resort where the indoors was part of the outdoors, and it was almost seamless. So I think design is really being shaped and challenged. And I think, just this whole era of the last year and a half, things haven't drastically changed, but I think design is more open to lots of new ideas, of a bit more free form, I think, and less restrictions. And we're just starting to explore space again, actually, in a different sort of context, and using that space not just 2-dimensionally, but also 3-dimensionally, looking at how we can, make spaces work much better. So, and how people want it, and people are changing their whole perception of going to some of these spaces. And a lot of hotels, have these directives that they want to become more social socially orientated. So we have to think about that. But, social distancing, I don't know, maybe that we won't see that in the next 5-6 years, but I think we're consciously always thinking about that as part of our design and how we do things. So, but will it stay? We don't know. I mean, I'm not sure.
We will do our best to address it, I guess. All of us.
I mean, we are addressing, people ask us, because of COVID, what have you changed, in terms of your design? And actually, we haven't really changed very much, We all thought the buffet in an all-day dining was going to be extinct now, but actually it's not. It's we still design it, but maybe it's going to be presented in different ways. So I think some of the effects that we've had over the last year and a half, we are addressing those in different ways, but in terms of design, more and more, I think we are more conscious about it, but it hasn't really affected the design brief, yet. So, I guess we have to watch this space, see what's happening, see what's coming about.
Absolutely. We're coming almost to an end to our podcast, but I have a bucket with 3 questions. I really want to ask you, and I'm really desperate to ask you this, because I think I want to hear your views, considering an amazing 45 minutes of discussion we had. One, women in business. You've been very successful, awarded for running your own business as a woman, the best design studio. You've been successful as in inspiring a lot of people, they look up at you like an inspiration. And there is a lot of industries that are getting a grip or try to balance in the gender equality, but it seems that the interior design community have done quite well or having a balance between male and female. Would you agree with that? Or
totally agree with that. And actually, people always ask me this they're about to ask me this question. As a woman, do you think you've been at a disadvantage? Maybe I'll ask that question. But actually, no, I never look at it that way. I just... I feel that as a woman, I sometimes have a leverage actually to maybe more of my male counterparts when working with certain clients. But also, I'm 6'2", so I get away with a lot more, I think. So I have this stature, so I'm sure I'm bigger than most people, so most of my clients, so they have to listen. But I don't, actually one thing with that, I like to hire a mix in my office. I love to have the balance of male and female. I think that's really important for just the growth of the company. I'm totally not all about women's liberation, but I really believe women should go and pursue their careers and really fight for what they want. I think that's important, I always remember my father, and I was helping him on the farm, and he said, do you want to work like me or do you want to go to school? And I just thought, and I was standing in the middle of this field with my dad holding all these bamboo stakes, actually, because we had crops outside. And I just thought to myself, I ain't doing this, and so, what, when you're sort of given a chance to think about what you can do, you just have to go and pursue it and be determined. So, but that also goes with men as well, so I believe in equality, actually.
Actually, I sympathize with your view, because even in my organizations, we have 78% women, and I can never disagree with what you're saying. It is so true, we have a lot to learn as men, and I'm very humbled to say, I want to learn more, because it's fantastic. I grew up in a household of 3 women and 2 men. So, we're a minority, but we feel absolutely great. It's a fantastic experience. Another question is about sustainability. how much of that do you incorporate in your design or when you're approaching a project? How do you take it, you know?
Actually, more and more now, some of our bigger projects, particularly in Saudi Arabia, they have a mandate or they're sort of going for LEED Platinum, and we have to really work around that. And it's not always the easiest, actually. So we work with other consultants who push that sustainability and monitor that throughout what we do in terms of our materials, our specifications that we're actually looking at. So more and more, actually, it's becoming kind of important. And I'm really sort of proud to say that over that COVID period, we organized some classes to have most of the team in the office attend a LEED course. So we actually did that as well. So most of my team now have had that, exposure to being certified for, sustainable approach to projects and to understand that a bit more. So that's been really great. But yeah, more and more we're really having to think about that.
Yeah. So it's almost the end, and it breaks my heart because I really enjoy it. I can go on.
We can continue
forever.
another time.
Yeah, we can continue another time with a nice cup of tea.
Yes.
And
only?
Yeah, maybe from Thailand. I don't know the good tea.
Yeah.
You can teach me that. But closing on a smile. We started with a smile. We want to close on a smile. And if next to Burj Khalifa there was a giant billboard, and you could write the message, what that could be.
Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot. Actually, you know what? Just perseverance. Perseverance in life, perseverance in anything. That would be my, I think my motto, actually. Just for people to just keep persevering, keep going, don't give up. Never give up, actually. So that would be, I guess, my billboard sign.
You know, I love the answer you gave, because in all your interviews, your final advice was get a pension plan.
Get a pension plan.
I feel great. I don't feel old.
Actually, you know what? I mean, you may laugh, but I think it was I think it was the chairman of RMJM, and when I was in Thailand, and I remember I was 24, 25, and he said to me, don't forget your pension plan. And I thought, oh, okay. And actually, you know what? I ended up doing one about a month later, and it just came to fruition after 25 years in January. So that was a good thing. I persevered with that too. So, but I think a lot of people don't think about that type of thing. But actually, it's something I think is good to do. It's good discipline.
Dear Kristina, I can only say
thanks, Filippo.
The most amazing, enjoyable 45 minutes together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time too. Thank you.